This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of our investment group and your host of Washington Calling, where we interview leading voices from business, from politics, from journalism that impact you, the viewer. Today, our guest is Dr. Sridhar Krishnaswami. He's a former Washington correspondent of PTI and The Hindu. Now he's a professor and deputy dean at the School of Media at SRM University in Chennai, India. He has written widely on American politics and Indo-US relations. Thank you for coming to our show, Dr. Krishnaswamy. It's wonderful to have you. And good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Dr. Islam, and wonderful being on your show.
Oh.
It has been a very good time for me when I was a journalist, and I still remember those days in Washington. I was there effectively from 1995 to 2009. First for a clip of about 10 years with the Hindu, and then for 4 years with the Press Trust of India. And then I had to move back to Chennai due to family reasons. And then I'm here at one of India's elite educational institutions as a professor of journalism, which I have been enjoying for the last 11 years. So that's a little bit of me, and you can go ahead with whatever.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Krishnaswamy, for your leadership, for what all you do to make a profound difference. What a coincidence that I'm talking to you who come from Chennai at a time when an American politician with a mixed heritage in India and Jamaica, Senator Kamala Harris, and a daughter of an immigrant. What did that reveal to you about her Indian roots to America? And she accepted the nomination of the Vice President of the United States. And what do you think of the rise of the Senator Harris? Despite the flaws and privileges, we have come so far in America. We can still be just and inclusive country that can provide equal opportunity to all, regardless of caste, creed, religion, race, background, and belief. As my friend Hillary Clinton just said not too long ago, we will have to stand together, we will heal together, we will redeem the promise and potential of America.
Thank you. That's a very nice introduction that you're having for this show. The rise of Senator Kamala Harris is a tribute to every hardworking immigrant who has made America his or her land. I don't have to tell you, sir, that America is a land of opportunity where you have every freedom to pursue what you want. And this is exactly what Senator Harris's mother, Shamala, did when she landed on the shores of California at the age of 19. And don't forget, and of course, I don't have to tell you this, the thing about Senator Harris that every one of us will have to keep in mind is that she did not get anything just for asking. She had to fight her way. She had to fight her way.
She earned it.
Yeah, she had to earn it. That is a dint of sheer hard work.
Right.
Nobody handed anything to her on a silver platter. For example, her childhood itself was very, very challenging. She was brought up by a single mother, and that did not deter her. She she studied her undergraduate at Howard University in Washington, D.C., and then went on to pursue law. And then she became a district attorney. And then lo and behold, she's the first female, first Asian American, first African American Asian female to become the Attorney General of the largest state of the United States. And now, she is on the ticket of former Vice President Joseph Biden. So it is not just a pride for India or Jamaica or Asian Americans the fact that Senator Kamala Harris has traveled so far is the pride of every immigrant who has made America his or her home.
Very well said. But I must say that I also embody the American dream. It's America that provided us letters of opportunity to succeed. These are the strength and values and qualities of America that all of us can proudly and truly embrace.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. You couldn't have put it any better.
Right.
For the simple reason that we have to understand anytime it's just not an Indian American, it's just not a Jamaican American, it's just not an African American. Everybody will have to figure out as to where they came from.
I agree.
Even if it is a white American.
Right, I agree.
You have to know where you have to know your roots, because it is the roots that gives you values. It gives you a way of life. So, today, that is what I think this election is going to be all about. It's going to be about American values and about American way of life.
Very well said, and I will come to that part. But I know you are the correspondent in Washington, D.C., and you cover many stories related to India, and especially the unfolding Indo-U.S. relationship. Do you think things have changed, and can you shed some bright light about the journalism between United States and India, and what are the differences and challenges that you have found in both countries? And have the journalism changed because of social media and the digital media also?
Excellent again. I would say from the time I was a student in the US in 1976.
Oh, wow. This is when I graduated as well.
I started my graduate school at Ohio University, Athens, Ohio in 1976. And my first introduction to American politics was when I witnessed the first debate between President Jimmy Carter and the then President Gerald Ford. That was my introduction to American politics. Now, looking back at the India-US relations, have they moved along? Most certainly they have.
Yes.
Have they moved along for the better? Most certainly they have. Are there challenges? Definitely there are challenges. No president in America or no prime minister in India can sit back and say, there is nothing more to be done for India-US relations. Because the challenges that we are facing is something new and that we are facing every day. For example, this COVID pandemic.
Right.
This is something that nobody anticipated in bilateral relations or even in multilateral diplomacy.
Correct.
But here we are faced with a pandemic that unfortunately has taken the lives of close to 170,000 Americans.
You got it.
And close to about 60,000 Indians.
Right.
Now, what is it? Now, two countries are putting their heads together and seeing what is it that we can learn so that we don't have to be faced with a similar kind of a pandemic in the future. Or what is it that we can do scientifically to get out of the current mess? India and the US have traveled a very long way in the realm of politics, security, economics, environment, policing the sea lanes, in climate change, you name it, Mr. Islam, and we have done it. But is there any more things to do? Definitely.
Yes. I agree.
Because for the simple reason that geopolitics can never be seen in a vacuum. It is always dynamic. It is never stationary.
Let me change my gear and talk about the political path traveled by Indian American, the rise and the political empowerment in America. Why do you think Indian Americans should be engaged politically? And what is the best, is it in the best interest of Indian American as a part of America's political landscape, which creates a common cause for all of us And anything we do in America is important for us to be politically engaged because it affects our life.
The Indian Americans, I don't have to tell you again.
Right.
We have indeed come a very long way in America. From just about sprinkles in the 60s and 70s.
Correct.
We are now a force of about 305 to 308 million, of which about 1.8 million are supposed to be voting population. This is the Indian American. Now, yes, there are Indian Americans who are Democrats, there are Indian Americans who are Republicans. But you touch the surface or you scratch the surface of either one of them, they will not talk about them being Republican or Democrat. They will talk about them being American. Because in every walk of life, whether it is in graduate school, whether it is being a teaching fellow or a teacher himself, or any profession, medical, engineer, doctor, you name any profession, Indian Americans have done well. They have done very well. They have done proud to both their country of their origin and to their country of adoption, which is right now the United States. Yes, they are a political force. And yes, both the Republicans and the Democrats are looking at the Indian American community, especially the voting bloc, especially those who are in those so-called swing states. As we call it.
It's a battleground states. It's a Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, and also Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, Florida, Wisconsin.
So it's 6% of the vote. It's a 6% of the electoral votes are going to make a difference.
Yes.
So let's talk about the U.S. election. This election is the battle, as Vice President Biden, who's a dear friend of mine, said, battle of heart and soul of America. What do you think that Trump and Biden will provide in terms of the leadership, in terms of the global leadership, to make sure that we can keep the promise of American democracy and its value and to bring the people together?
Okay, that's a two-part question, and I will answer it in two parts.
Okay.
One, what is it that former Vice President Joseph Biden can bring to the realm of leadership and foreign policy? Number one, the problem with American foreign policy today is that we don't know what it is. We simply don't know what it is. Many people, especially in the Middle East, in Europe, they are at a loss to understand the directions of American foreign policy. Now, one day you say you're going to be in Afghanistan. Second day you say, I'm out of Afghanistan.
Correct.
One day you say, I'm going to be in Syria, I'm going to wipe out the ISIS.
Right.
The next day you get up and say, I'm getting out of Syria. So see, what happens is you not only add an element of uncertainty, but you also inject something called incoherence in American foreign policy. So right now, if the world is looking at Mr. Biden, it is in some kind of a clarity. We want to know what it is that the Americans are going to be bringing to the table in terms of global leadership. And that global leadership does not mean that you walk away from the World Health Organization, or you walk away from the UN, or you walk away from the World Bank. No, that is not a question of walking away. What are you going to walk into? That is what people are very worried about. Now, that is as far as the foreign policy is concerned. Domestic, and believe me, it's been quite a while since I have been in the US for a prolonged period of time. But from what I see, from what I read, from what I hear, I think Mr. Biden has to give that healing touch.
Very well.
The healing touch is very, very important, because it's just not a question of addressing racial injustice. That is the majority, that's a major part of his problem. It is just in a question of addressing the common concerns of Americans, that everybody is treated equal under the eyes of the law or under the eyes of opportunity. You see, that is where people have started misconstruing, or that is how people have started interpreting what the last 4 years have been. Now, I don't want to say anything that will be prejudicial to, to Mr. Trump or to the Republican Party, but the way things have fanned out, the way, see, you can't run domestic policy or international policy on tweets. You ask something up on tweets, on Twitter. You can't run foreign policy on Facebook. You can't run foreign policy on Instagram. You can't run domestic politics on Instagram or Twitter. That's exactly what has been happening. You have a president who gets up at about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then his own cabinet finds out what is in store for them through a series of tweets, between 3 and 5 in the morning. So basically, even the fellow who wants to get dressed up and come to work, figures out whether he has to dress up and come to work, because he might have lost his job early in the morning. So that is not the kind of, policy that people, are looking at.
We want to change that. And you made a point that I wanted to kind of talk about in addition to foreign policy, we have a domestic policy with turning around the economy and our healthcare is important. And also in terms of who we are as an immigrant, the H-1 visa, to make sure that we can restore that, and Muslim banning, which he did that, and I know Vice President Biden will restore it. Let me just say a word on what President Kennedy said about immigration, because I am on the board of the Harvard University and also board of the JFK Library. And I'm very fond of President Kennedy, who said, immigrants infuse this nation with far horizons and new frontier, thereby keeping the hope alive and well. And he was himself an immigrant. His great-grandfather came from the potato famine of Ireland, and he took a lot of pride in who he was. And we should take a pride in who we are.
Absolutely. That's what I said some time back, that you scratch the surface of any immigrant, they will not say that I am from this country or that country. They'll, excuse me, they will feel very proud of the fact that they have made America their home. Now what's the problem as far as the H-1Bs are concerned? It's a problem of numbers, and it's the problem of perception. Now, what is the perception? The perception that the H-1Bs have been allowed into the country to take away the jobs of Americans. See, if you put it in that way, every American will object to H-1B visas. If you say, I'm bringing in one H-1B from India, and in the process, I'm losing one American, nobody in America will say, bring in the Indian, or bring in the Filipino, or bring in the Chinese. Nobody will say that. But that is not what H-1B visa is all about, Mr. Islam, you know that. Yeah. It's a high-skilled visa.
I agree.
Not just anybody can walk in. Not just anybody can walk in.
And we need those people in our country, because we have millions and millions of vacancies. They built America, and we need to work together to ensure that we can have people who come to our shore to make sure they can also be a part of the American dream and build America. I want to talk a little bit about the future of Indian journalism and freedom of press in India under this government. Mm-hmm. As you probably know, the freedom of press is a part of our constitution, is a vital and vibrant and healthy for our democracy, correct? We should praise the free press, not to bury it. Do you believe the freedom of press is critical to the future of India? And what are the overriding responsibility of the journalists to separate the fact and the fiction, So tell us a little bit about the importance of freedom of press and why it is not happening in India under this government.
Excuse me. I would not agree with the premise of your last part of your statement, that somehow there is no freedom of press under the present dispensation in India. But let me go back and start. Freedom of the press is the soul of any country which is democracy, which is a democracy. Whether it is the United States or India or any democracy, you know, freedom of the press. And let me tell you one thing, journalists in India, or for that matter, even in America, will never give themselves up for anybody who wants to subdue them. You know, that is something that is inherent in our blood. You know, their right of free speech, the right of free expression. Now, you see, but even in the US, even in Britain, journalism is under threat today. Because why? We use these draconian national security issues to force journalists to cough up their sources, which we normally don't do. You know, you are quite aware of the number of cases that come before US Circuit Court of Appeals and even the Supreme Court. You know, journalists will never cough up. They will never. But the government says, I want to know where you got that information from. That means what? We have to give in. We never do that. Now, for India, the problem is little different. You know, we don't have a crackdown on national security, what you call scenario. But there are always, political parties of various hues who go around threatening journalists to write things from their perspective. It is just not the government that is saying, write it like this or write it like that. For example, I have been writing as a commentator now for the last 10 years, ever since I came back to this. There were many times I've been critical of the government, many times. And nobody ever called me and said, don't write like this, don't write like that.
They do tell me not to write when I write it.
I see, okay.
So freedom of press,
that is bad.
Freedom of press is under threat under this government because the fact that they own the media, in a sense, the BJP government owns a lot of advertising dollars, which is important to them, to the journalism as well as the newspapers and the newspapers. So they do have their concerns over there, and that's it's not healthy for democracy. You cannot tout yourself the largest democracy in the world when you do not have the pillar and the cornerstone democracy, that's freedom of press.
Yes, very true. That's why you will find established newspapers will never buckle. They will never buckle because you can only threaten them up to a certain point by not giving them government advertisements. Okay, now the fellows who are really vulnerable are the small and medium fellows who are dependent, because they are dependent on the revenue, because X amount of people, hundreds, thousands of people will be out of a job if they shut down. Now going back to America, in the last 4 years, media has been, I don't think Mr. Trump loves any media house except Fox News. And even of late, even Fox News has come to rub him on the wrong side.
That is
so,
correct.
Basically for him, all news is fake news, except the ones that come from his mouth. Okay?
And he also bullies and insults the people.
Oh yeah,
it's easy. We want to change that, and we are. But the media over here still is very free. The CNN, the CBS, and ABC News, and so on and so forth. They're very free. They will criticize Washington Post, as you probably know, is also very free, and they will do what is necessary to bring the people together to criticize his bullying and insulting to the media. This is not. It's a part of our Constitution. Thomas Jefferson put that in the Constitution. I want to talk a little bit about the time that we have left here, because you're so articulate and well-versed and wonderful to talk to you. I can go on and on.
Thank you, sir.
How do you view the future of U.S.-India relationship under this administration, and shed the bright light in terms of the commerce, trade, diversity? Do you think that this administration will strengthen, broaden, and deepen our engagement and partnership with India? And do you think India relationship, U.S. relationship with India is under a solid ground under the Biden administration?
Okay, when you told this administration, I assume that you're referring to Biden administration.
You got it. Very well said. Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
yes. You're absolutely right.
Okay. Now let me tell you. Let me begin this with a small caveat.
Okay.
There is a general feeling in America. I'm sorry, in India, that the Republicans are better for India-America relations than the Democrats. Now, why do they have that perception? Because they always have this feeling that Democrats come with them, come with a baggage with them. Now, what is that baggage? The baggage is about human rights,
Yes.
nuclear weapons, Kashmir, and you go down the list. Okay, so that is a perception. Now, does it mean that Republicans don't come with that baggage? I don't know. But at least they don't talk about as openly as the Democrats do.
Well, because that's our democracy. Those are the consistent with our values, with our character and the conscience of our nation. We need to speak up and speak out and step up if there's a violations of the human rights.
Yeah, that's fine. But what Indians they do like to speak about violations of human rights. But we have our own National Human Rights Commission. We have our State Human Rights Commission. We don't want a State Department report to tell us where we go wrong. You see, that's the whole thing. And this is what you're mandated by law, to bring out all those reports. State Department brings out the human rights report, and then you have something called religious freedom. Right. And like this, you go down the list and you criticize every other country outside, but never focus on what America is all. A lot of things also take place within the country. Now, let me go back and address, in a Biden administration, I have no doubt that India-US relations will grow. They will grow in depth, they will grow in width, both ways. Because essentially, there may be differences between these two countries, but we don't disagree on the basic principles of democracy. We don't. We simply see eye to eye on issues of politics, vertical strategic issues. Yes, we do have differences when it comes to economic issues, but those things are not going to be settled overnight. I remember when President Trump visited India, there was a lot of this hoopla that he's going to go back with a trade pact.
And didn't
it's
happen.
Not that simple, Mr. Islam. You know that.
It didn't happen. Nothing happened.
Even if Mr. Biden comes, I doubt whether in the first 100 days he's going to sign a trade pact either with India or with China.
Correct.
It's not. It's easier said than done. People who are talking, they don't realize how much work goes into it. Cutting across administrations. See, what Mr. Biden definitely will do is that when he comes to power, he's not going to dump every one of the things that was done previously. He's going to weigh every one of them on a case-by-case basis and see what is good for America, what is good for the other countries, and what is good for the world. See, because everything cannot be centered around yourself. That's what makes things very, very difficult in global politics today. When you refuse to allow the other fellow to walk away with something from the table. See, that is the problem with the world. That's what I may be simplistic, but that's exactly what I feel.
Before I close the conversation, as you probably know, the Indian diaspora play a very key role in achieving India's fullest potential. And that includes the healthcare, the economy, the innovation, the entrepreneurship, and many, many other factors. What role do you feel the people-to-people engagement that we need, the India diaspora can play to achieve India's fullest potential?
I think more exchanges, cultural exchanges between India and the United. Sir, we have enough of other exchanges. We have enough Indian engineers, enough Indian doctors, enough Indian scientists. Okay, but we don't have much on the cultural front. Of course, I would be remiss if I said that there is nothing. No, that's wrong also. Right. But still, people-to-people contact, we need more. For example, you have that Fulbright Nehru Fellowship.
Yes.
Yeah, that could be expanded. That could be expanded to cover as many fields as possible. Now, these days, there's not much money going around. So they are contracting, they're compressing these fellowships. They're taking away certain areas away from who can apply. So maybe the new administration, with its far-sighted view on foreign policy pertaining to India, will try to bring this back to where it was. That is my fond hope, and that's my fond dream also.
And one more thing before I close it, you mentioned about arts and culture. I sit on the board of the Kennedy Center Board of Trustees, which is appointed by President Obama, who is a personal friend, is a presidential appointment. And art culture is something that we need to nourish and nurture the relationship with India. As President Kennedy said, art nourishes the roots of our culture. Art engages us, art connects us, and the most important thing, art transcends all boundaries. So
absolutely, absolutely. I don't think President Kennedy could have said it any better. He hit the nail right on the head, because even in 1960s, he understood where America was going to be in 2060.
Can you believe that?
He's a man who dreamed,
And
the problem with the world these days is that we don't have dreamers. We don't have Kennedys. We don't have Martin Luther Kings. We don't have Nelson Mandelas. We don't
Robert
have
Kennedy.
Gandhis.
Even Robert Kennedy, who was his brother.
We don't have people like them. People who had the guts to dream.
Very well said.
Hopefully, Mr. Biden will fill that void.
I hope so. We need a dreamer and doer, both. So yes. Thank you very much for coming to our show. This is Frank Islam wishing you a great week, and thank you for watching.